Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is another episode of 17 and some change. I'm AccuDad17, here to bring you my 2 cents. It's Wednesday, it's hump day. Hope your week is going good, and hopefully the rest of your week goes solid as well. The first thing I wanted to talk about today was a recent escapade I had to a Walmart store. Now, I've always liked Walmart. I've liked Walmart both as a consumer and as an investor. As an investor, I steer towards staple companies. I steer towards companies that have been successful for a long time running. Um, and think I think Walmart is one of the most, if not the most profitable retailer in all of human history. Um, so I prefer as a shopper, um, as a consumer, I prefer the non super centers. I like the quaint locations. Um, and that's where I ended up recently. I ended up at one of their quaint spots, one of their smaller spots, and they had the lights. Half of the lights were off, and it just ruined the whole atmosphere for me. The whole place um, turned dull. It turned um, it just became a dreary experience, which is the opposite of the experience I usually have at Walmart. They have so many lights in that store, um, and it usually it's nice and bright, typically, and um, it's a nice place to be. But they had shut off the lights. I asked some of the employees about the like what's going on with the lights, and it, eventually it did come out. One of them did admit that it was to cut costs. I mean, the first one tried to lie and say the power went out. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you don't lose half the power. Like, you don't just lose like half your lights like in a pattern if the power went out or whatever. But nah, they do it to cut costs and stuff like that. And um it wasn't a scorching day in summer. But I didn't like that. That was poopy. I actually shopped somewhere else. Um I don't need to be shopping in a horror movie. Um which reminds me, um Scream 6 I ended up watching the other day. I used to be a huge fan of horror movies growing up. Um, I was a big fan of slashers, and not for like typical reasons that people usually enjoy those types of films. Yeah, the suspense is okay and whatnot, and um, you want to be scared a little bit. Um, but I liked slashers because they typically doubled as hero films, where you always had like a protagonist taking on the villain, and I would always want to see the villain get lit up, so to speak. But Scream 6 I found to be incredibly corny. I didn't like it. I don't know. I mean, I haven't really. Megan was a good horror movie, but I haven't really overall enjoyed horror movies for a while. I don't watch them much anymore. As far as Scream 6, I don't know if I found it corny because I am watching like teenagers. Um, and when you're growing up, watching a movie about teenagers is exciting because you're going to become a teenager. But when you're a grown man or an adult, watching movies about teenagers is kind of, I don't know. I mean, it should be nostalgic or whatever. It was just it didn't have, like, the cast didn't have any. I can't say they didn't have any cohesion, but it was just like a hodgepodge of characters that didn't really stick out. None of them really stood out. Um, None of them was really endearing. There was no Dewey. Um, I mean, the real Dewey is dead by Scream 6, but there was no Dewey type. I thought they did an okay job paying homage to some of the earlier films. You know, Gail Weathers actually still made an appearance. Um, but yeah, I don't know. We were clamoring for so long for a Scream 4, for a Scream 5, and stuff like that. And that might be a series where they would have been best off ending it at four, 3 or 4. Either ending it as that trilogy that was amazing, or you do something like a decade later type thing. Um, but now we'll see. We'll see how far it extends. They might go to like Scream 10 and stuff like that, and then try to make Ghostface, as big as like Michael Myers or something like that. But I um I could pass. I could pass on the rest of the Screams in the future. Um, Happy it's not yet. It'll be in 2 days. Happy 4th of July. Um, I know. Um, it's it's becoming. I don't know which angle to kind of attack this from first. Um, typically holidays are supposed to be a time of reprieve, a time where you get together with people that you like, or love, and you engage in activities, whether it's celebratory or ceremonious, that you know brings a little bit of dopamine, brings a little bit of happiness to you and stuff like that. For the 4th, you do the cookouts and you do the fireworks and you do, some people will drink the beers and stuff like that. Um, which I don't mess with beer. I mean, I don't really mess with alcohol personally. Um, yeah, I guess I can detour there real quick. I stopped drinking over a year ago. I feel like alcohol is really bad. Um, where it permeates every cell in your body. Um, and it's nasty. But I um I think I actually hit my quota for alcohol consumption in a lifetime. Um, I feel like if there is a certain amount of anything that you can consume before your body's done with it, I've definitely reached that point with alcohol. Um, you can only black out so many times before um your body starts protecting you and saying like, "Hey, are we ingesting this shit again?" Nah. So I have no tolerance for alcohol anymore. My body hates it, and I my mind hates it, and yeah, I don't. What is it good for? I don't like it, but a lot of people do, and like I don't want to be a Debbie Downer and rain on your parade. No pun, 4th of July. Because like if you could drink responsibly and you haven't hit your threshold of blackouts in your life or whatever, like, you know what I mean? Like a few drinks can get you a nice little buzz or whatever, feeling good. Like I'm not, you know, I'm not Amish or anything like that, but and so festivities and alcohol, and then like some people are happy to be with their family, but unfortunately a lot of people are not happy to be with their families nowadays. And then, or maybe always, it's just becoming like more talked about now, how like families are typically very disjointed. um but like I also feel like the 4th of July is something that the individuals on the far left are not going to enjoy. I feel like the individuals on the far left don't don't like the 4th of July. They don't like American holidays. They don't like anything that celebrates or uplifts the America. Um, so I think that's kind of interesting how that's changed in my lifetime. Like growing up in the 90s and stuff like that, there wasn't. I mean, there might have been a small sect, but it wasn't anything like the whole nation seemed to get behind 4th of July and Christmas and stuff like that, and it's kind of still like that, but it's a lot of leftists don't mess with the 4th of July thing. So um, but we out there. I'm gonna be working and stuff, but hopefully, hopefully, if it is a holiday that you celebrate, hopefully you're able to celebrate it and you do that safely and you have fun and you don't hate your family and stuff like that, right? Um, I don't, so, um, they say you shouldn't use Q-tips. They say you shouldn't use like Q-tips in your ear because like it doesn't like clean your ear. It just kind of like pushes the wax like further in and whatnot. Um, but I don't know if y'all have used Q-tips in the past, but they're very orgasmic. Um, it's like a ear orgasm. So I don't like when people talk shit about Q-tips. And I um I wanted to own a football team at some point in my life, but I I don't know how feasible that is. I don't think I'll ever be able to afford an NFL team. Um, the UFL, I think that's what they call it, the UFL. They don't have private ownership. Like all the teams are owned by the league. And then if we're getting into like shittier leagues underneath that, then it's not even worth it. Even the UFL can't even fill a stadium. And so between college and professional, like if I wanted to own a football team that was outside of the major leagues and stuff like that, like we couldn't fill stadiums. It would be like all these semi pro leagues and stuff like that. Um, you're working with really, really lower levels of talent, and then it's not even the same anymore. But I've um I've owned a few teams in Madden throughout my life. Right, I've been good at winning a lot of Super Bowls in Madden and on franchise mode, and I could still do that, which is something. Though I have a lot less time for franchises now than ever. But it kind of leads me into like I've won Super Bowls in Madden. Like I've I've taken like the worst team in the league and played on all Madden difficulty and won Super Bowls type shit. And so for anybody who's interested, I'm actually gonna use the rest of the time on this episode to do a little bit of football philosophy. Um, so I'm gonna break down my philosophy on position by position, kind of what I'm looking for the positions and stuff like that. And then I'm gonna do a quick Q&A regarding my philosophies on game management and stuff like that. Um, so in regards to players, um, starting from the top, if you want to look at the quarterback position, I typically look for um, size in a quarterback. I know that's not really. I mean, Drew Brees and Tony Romo. Tony Romo wasn't tiny. Tony Romo was like 6'2". But I like 6'4" archetype quarterbacks. I like quarterbacks that kind of stand taller in the pocket, like the Joe Burrows and the Tom Brady's and stuff like that. I like 6'4" ish quarterbacks. And um I like the intangibles in quarterbacks. I like patience. I like patience in a quarterback. I like a quarterback that is meticulous. Um, I'll take accuracy over arm strength. Um, Somebody who's not gonna turn the ball over much. Um, Quarterback position, I've always been the type like even they say you can't win Super Bowls without elite quarterbacks. Like I don't buy that at all. They say a bus driver is an insult. I don't buy that at all. I think I mentioned that in episode one when we were talking about Shador Sanders. I think bus driver is a compliment. Um, you know, um, get me somebody who can, you know, drive a team down a field consistently without turning the ball over. That's the type of quarterback that I want. Um, if they're mobile, that's an added benefit, but that's not something that I'm looking for first and foremost. I much rather have pocket mobility than speed, um, and stuff like that. Um, when we're looking when we're looking at the when we're looking at the halfback position, I I I like to have multiple halfbacks. I like to have like four running backs. Um, Not exactly a running back by committee. I do like having like my one bell cow, so to speak. The one the a main running back that gets most of the carries, somebody that's like really good. Somebody who, if you were looking at Madden, would be rated at least an 85. Your number one back. And then I like to have a receiving back, quick, uh, quick guy who can catch the ball and take off, shifty, um, can move to the slot or just like out of the backfield as a receiver and stuff like that. Um, I like having one of those. And then I need that power back. A big like Leonard Fournette or Brandon Jacobs, just like a short yardage, downhill bruiser. And then the fourth back I want to have is somebody who can take on any one of those three roles. Somebody who's versatile enough because injuries happen. Somebody who's versatile enough where he can do a little bit of power, he can do a little bit of receiving, a little bit of blocking, he can carry majority of the touches if you needed him to. Just kind of a Swiss Army knife. So I like I'll go into the season with four halfbacks. Fullbacks are a position that I am disappointed when when teams phase that position out. When teams don't carry a fullback, I'm disappointed with them. I mean, even if you want to use a backup tight ends, though they're a little bit more tall than you would like at the fullback position. I like a standard fullback. I like a classic traditional fullback. That's because I value the run and what the running game can do. And I don't know. I don't see how you can get away from having a lead blocker. Like I think a lead blocker is like essential. I like lead blockers, and there's so many different things you could do from with a fullback. Um, so I like a good lead blocker who has a little bit of utility to him. That's perfect. It becomes like a weapon that nobody really expects. A little fullback flat, a little fullback handoff under within when you need like a yard, or less than a yard. Um, always, uh, you know, sticking by your, leaving him in the backfield to block, or like I said earlier, leading for your halfback. No, I think a fullback is a great weapon to have. Um, as far as um, if you want to look at receivers, um, I again I need that number one receiver. If I can't have a Randy Moss type, then I will take uh, a T.O. or a Michael Irvin type. My number one receiver, I'd like him to be, CD Lamb is okay. Des Bryant, I like him to be at least 6'2". 6'2" playmaker. You could go up, get the ball. Even Keyshawn Johnson was a fine number one, as far as I was concerned. Um, Big guy, can go up, high point balls, not slow, has speed, just a weapon, just Mike Evans, just a big weapon at number one. Amari Cooper, you know what I mean? Um, and so I like that. And then for the second receiver, well, on the receiving court, like you get your main guy, then you need somebody that's really fast. I like having somebody that can blow the top off. 6 feet tall, 5'11", even shorter, even taller, whatever it is. Give me one guy where you can like streak him down the fields and you're stretching the F out of that defense, right? And then get me a guy who is just a route running. He just runs routes. You put him in the slot, and he's a killer with his feet with route running. Those are the three types that I want. At receiver, tight ends. Um, they have to have some blocking capabilities. Like they have to be able to block somewhat. I I like a balanced tight end. Yes, everybody, it sounds great to have a tight end that's catching a thousand yards receiving in a year, but these guys need to be able to block to help your running game, to help your blind side or your front side for that matter. Um, they need to be able to block their hybrid position between a lineman and a receiver, and so they need to have both those skill sets as far as I'm concerned. And then the further you go down on the depth chart as a tight end, the better they need to be at blocking, the less good they need to be at receiving. So like I want my third tight end. Um, Oftentimes I don't care. I'll put uh not oftentimes, but sometimes I'll put an offensive tackle as my third tight end. So when these goal line formations come, your third tight end is another tackle. You know, um, because remember in goal line you get three tight ends, right? Um, but yeah, so balanced tight ends, and then they lean more towards blocking the further down on the depth chart they are. Um, Linemen, the left tackle is obviously a non-negotiable. You need either a developing left tackle or a left tackle that's already a stud. Um, Like you need a good left tackle. I'm big on offensive line. I feel like games are won and lost in the trenches. And so if I'm building a team, I'm really looking to offensive line first and foremost. I'm really trying to get my offensive line solid before I'm looking at skilled positions and stuff like that. So like a tackle that can block, like a really good left tackle. Um, if your quarterback's right-handed, if he's left-handed, you want a really good right tackle, and then I want somebody that's capable enough on the other side as well. So if I have a 90 on one side, I want at least an 80, 82 on the other side at least. And then I like big um, strong linemen who still retain some mobility. Um, and So interior linemen, my guards are typically going to be big, big guards. Think Leonard Davis, think Larry Allen. Um, I like Willie Roaf. I like big road graders for guards that could, like I said earlier, still move. Um, and then center, I want my center to be tough and smart and tactical, um, and play with good leverage and good hands. Um, and the center can be. So if we're going by like Madden ratings or whatever, just to kind of illustrate tiers. So let's say you get a 90 on one tackle spot and 80 on another tackle spot. I'm gonna want at least one of those interior linemen to also be a 90. Um, and then really no lineman that's gonna be under a 78. So if your center's a 79 and you got a 94 guard and an 84 guard with a 90 tackle and an 81 tackle or whatever, that'll work as far as I'm concerned. But so I need two studs on the offensive lineman. I need a tackle that's a stud and I need a guard that's a stud. Um And then so when you flip it to the defensive side of the ball, um, interior defensive tackles, get me get me a 1-2 punch, get me that uh 290. I'll run the 4-3. Um, I'll run the 4-3. So at D tackles, get me that one guy that's like close to 300 pounds, maybe has a little bit more, speed to him, a little bit more rip, a little bit more spin, a little bit of ability to kind of think like Jay Ratliff, kind of like an ability to kind of like split doubles and things of that nature. And then my second defensive tackle is going to be a house. Um, just somebody 340 pounds, uh, um, Lindell Joseph type. Um, just a huge guy there. Warren Sapp, and actually, I take that back. I don't know how big Warren Sapp was, but um, a a, a, um, a more agile defensive tackle, and then a guy that's just gonna stay in that spot. Um, Defensive ends, pass rush versus run contain. If you want to go one of each, or if you want to go balanced on both. Um, you know, uh, or if you even if most of the time if you have like a really good pass rushing defensive lineman, they're or defensive end, they're also going to be able to um, well, in a video game, not necessarily in real life, they're also going to be able to contain the edge. But you need ends that can contain the edge. Let's put it that way. So you want having pass rushing defensive ends, having a pass rush in football is probably a top five importance type thing. Like having defensive lineman that can rush the passer is of utmost importance. But with that being said, your ends also need to um, not allow contain the edges. Your ends also have to be able to contain the edges. So you want people that can rush the passer and contain the edges. That's what you're looking for your ends. Um, your linebackers, I like having a guy in the middle who is able to cover. I think the hardest thing for a linebacker to do is coverage because um, there's so many different types of weapons that they have to cover. And there's a lot more space, and they're going backwards, not forwards. And linebackers prefer to move forward, downhill. So because coverage is typically harder for linebackers than playing the run, um, I look for a middle linebacker that can cover first. Um, and then you want him to be tough, of course. And so I like the middle linebacker to kind of be the anchor of the linebackers, the best linebacker. I want to be my middle linebacker. Um, and then on his left and right side, I like to have somebody that's fast, and I like to have somebody that's strong. Um, and And then as far as corners are concerned, I like to have eclectic corners, size wise. Um, to me, I like to like match the size and speed of the receivers. Um, I know technique is vitally important. So within skill reason, right? Um, I think secondaries are important. I would um, take good corners before I took good safeties. Um, the better the corner you can get, the better you're doing, and then look for matchups. Matchup with size, speed, and skill. Um, free safety should be able to cover. He should be able to cover almost as well as a corner. You need him sometimes in man to cover somebody by himself. You need him to have your corners back. You need him to be the last line of defense sometimes. Your free safety should be able to cover. Your free safety should be his main thing in my world, is coverage. And then I like a strong safety that's like I mean, the NFL is a little bit different now, um, than but I like a Roy Williams type, a Jamal Adams type. I like a box safety that can rock. Somebody that can just eat the football and cause fumbles. Somebody that can box the football and cause fumbles. Somebody that just like tackles through a person to the other side. You know what I mean? I like a strong safety that's just um, ass kicker. I think it's also important to have a backup strong safety that can play a linebacker role in the nickel, depending on the team that you're playing against. Um, yeah, and then kick returner, punt returner, that's fine. You could put any athlete really that can hold on to the ball. I think it's more of a cheat code to put halfback back there because they're used to carrying the football and they have less chance of fumbling, or they should at least. And then, of course, you want a kicker that you can rely on. Um, you want a kicker that you can rely on, and it's not about power versus accuracy. I mean, you want the accuracy, and then the power you gotta figure out on the power. Like there shouldn't be much of a guessing game. You know what I mean? You should. I mean, in real life, maybe but in Madden, you should know like the outer range of your kicker's leg, and then what that means with like the wind. Like when I'm playing, I know exactly which yard line I can get to still make a field goal. By like the hair of a head, right? Like um yeah, I know exactly where I need to be to get the distance. And that's where you need to be with your kicker. So it's not ever like, oh, can he make it from this distance? It's like, no, I gotta get to the 34-yard line. With me it's typically the 35. Well, no, that's not true. That's not true. That's an arbitrary line that I set for um myself and my opponent. But depending on the kicker, that will change, right? I have kickers that I know that I can get to the 40 and still kick a field goal, you know. Um, but yeah, yeah, that's that. Um, this episode's running a little bit longer than I thought, which isn't terrible. I'm going to um I'm going to just kind of go over a quick Q&A in regards to um, game management philosophy. Um, and I'll try to bust through these relatively quickly. The first question that I have prompted says, if you're leading by 3 points with a little over 2 minutes remaining, do you play it safe and lean on your defense to close the game, or do you stay aggressive on offense and try to put it away yourself? What's your philosophy in that situation? So I guess they're saying if you have the ball and you're up by three late in the game, close to 2 minutes, what are you doing there? And I said it's going to depend on the context, of course, like how well my team is playing, how well the other team has been playing. What's the field position look like? What's the weather look like? But typically speaking, I would be leaning more towards a balanced approach. Um, where you're still trying to get the first down, but you're doing it using runs and safe plays as opposed to five step drops and looking for the deep post and stuff like that. Um, so you know it, it's situational, but you want to be trying to get a first down without doing anything too risky. Um, how do you feel about it going? How do you feel about going for it on fourth and short near midfield in a tight game? Are you a believer in momentum and aggression, or do you prefer to trust field position and your defense? Um, that's definitely a feel thing for me. More times than not, I will punt the ball. Um, I think 7 or 8 times out of 10, I'm punting near midfield. But if I feel like we have the momentum, sometimes you just feel like you're gonna pick it up. Pretty confident when it's 1 yard or under. You know what I mean? You just get a feeling that you're gonna pick it up. And either that, or if my team has been struggling to move the ball offensively, struggling to score primarily and particularly, I should say, um, and we're finally starting to get a drive where we've gotten to three first downs, and now it's fourth and short near midfield, then I'd consider going for it in that situation as well. But like I said, maybe 70-80% of the time I'm punting in that situation. When the clock is winding down at the end of a half, how aggressive are you with timeouts and clock stopping plays? Are you trying to squeeze every second for points, or are you more situational, protecting the ball and heading to the locker room if things feel shaky? Um, I try to be cautiously optimistic and use my timeouts if the drive is going well. Right? So you start the drive with a screen or a draw or something safe, and if it goes well, you keep going. You know what I mean? Um, but you're not gonna, you don't want to give up anything either big before the half. Um, how do you feel about tempo? Are you someone who likes to go no huddle and push pace regularly, or do you prefer a slower, more deliberate style of play, controlling the clock and the rhythm? I prefer uh, a slower pace, and that actually does remind me um of my high school football days where our coaches would insist on us approaching the line as fast as we could. They wanted a high tempo, they wanted a fast tempo, but I was always under the mindset, and there's reasons for that. You don't let the defense, you keep the defense on their heels. You keep them tired, you don't give them enough, like, too much time to think and stuff like that. um but I always felt like it is psychologically imposing if your offensive line is if you're approaching the line slowly and deliberately and moving the ball down the field. you know um I I think there's something there. Um, and also you're controlling the clock. Um, time of possession, you win time of possession. I think that's crucial. Um, but it's also good to be able to go up tempo in instances that you want to switch it up. If your run game's not really working that day, um, 2 minute drills, stuff like that. It's good to be able to go to up tempo, but I think there is not many better ways to break a defense than to methodically and slowly march and grind your way down the field. So that's my take on tempo. Um, when your team is down two scores entering the fourth quarter, how early do you shift into urgency mode? Do you stick to your game plan longer or start pushing tempo and taking shots earlier than most would? Um, no, not necessarily. Three scores is a different situation than two scores. I've always said that um, if I have three timeouts, I am okay living within a two possession game all the way down until late, late, late in the game. Um, but that does remind me, I have had this idea for a while where I think the NFL should do away with quarterback kneels. I don't think the game should be able to end on a quarterback kneel. I think that they should change the rules if the ball does not make it past the line of scrimmage in the last 2 minutes of gameplay. then the clock stops. Football is one of the only sports where one team does not have a chance to get a possession back um, late in a game. Um, if they're out of timeouts, then you I don't there's no other sport where the game is over with 2.5 minutes left. Like the NFL is wasting so much like potential by having games that are literally over at the 2 minute warning because the other team doesn't have any timeouts. Like it's the stupidest thing, and they just stand there for and fart around for the last 2 minutes. Whereas if the offensive team had to at least get to the line of scrimmage, the defense has the chance to all out on them and stop that clock. Um, so I think that's a rule change that I'm surprised nobody's ever thought of, and I want credit for when it actually happens. Um, a team can literally be alive and helpless at the same time. Like because in basketball you could foul your opponent, get the ball back. And then it says, how do you approach red zone offense? Are you someone who keeps it simple and physical down there, or do you believe in dialing up creative plays and misdirection once the field shrinks? Um, I mean, I like running the ball in the red zone like I do every other spot on the field. But I like traditional, simple, quick routes in the red zone. Think like fades, spread field, curls. I like slants, Texas. Um, but like if we are talking about red zone, then I gotta talk about other guidelines that I follow philosophically. And that is, the idea of keeping the three in your back pocket is important to me because the idea of stacking points is important to me because points are hard to come by, and the more of them that you can guarantee, the better off you are. So I try to stack as many points as I can and then look back late in the fourth quarter and see what I need to do then. Um so like if I'm in the red zone, it's don't turn the ball over. Don't turn the ball over. Don't take potential points away. It hurts way worse than any other place on the field. Don't turn the ball over in the red zone. Just psychologically. Don't um, don't get sacked out of field goal range. Right. Know that you have that field goal in your back pocket. Um, and then settle for the field goal when it comes, or when time comes, when if necessary. You know, I'll be more reluctant to go for fourth and short when I'm in field goal range than at the 50, right? Um, but the only caveat to that, the only exception to that is if I'm inside the 2 yard line. Because if you're inside the 2 yard line and you kick a field goal, that is emotionally demoralizing. You don't get that close to the end zone that often. So if you get that close to the end zone, freaking just go for it. And also, you have multiple chances of success if you go for it from inside the two. You have the chance that you score a touchdown. If you don't, you have a chance that you score a safety. And if you don't do that, you have a chance to hold them to a punt and get the ball back about a first down or two away from a field goal. So you kind of get three chances for something good to happen if you go for it at the 2 yard line there. So that's the only caveat to that. With all that being said, I think this has been the longest show that I've done so far. So I'm gonna thank you guys for being here. And thank you guys for um listening, and hopefully you got the entertainment and stuff like that. And I'll be back next Wednesday, and we'll do this all over again and talk about other stuffs. All right. Goodbye.